good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you
Happy
are in
New
the world.
Year.
Happy New Year! And welcome to a
Yeah.
brand new edition of Social Confoes in 2023. It's episode 95. Wow. So five
Yeah,
more
if you do
episodes
the
to go,
math, we
episode
missed a
100.
few episodes last
No,
year to
it's
make it
it's
100,
it's
but
pretty good. It's 95. 95 episodes over the last 2 years. It's pretty impressive. We're closing on to our 100th episode. And Diego, I have to say, because for the Lucky D show, we're gonna switch it up with the intro. But I must say, I still love the intro very, very much. So, my
eh,
compliments to you for yeah. For
that's
first of all,
the
we picked the right song to open up with.
value
But
of evergreen content, right?
oh yeah, I have to say, I'm quite excited, and uh, Ruth is joining in to wish you a happy New Year, Diego. Ruth is also going to help me cue me for something that I have to do a little bit later as well. But what can we expect for today?
So today we have a guest again. We had our last episode like 2 weeks ago, I think, right before Christmas. We closed it a bit off with some uh, recaps, AI stuff, how that's taking over, and I actually made a post New
And I see a
Year's
background.
and the background
Yeah.
AI generated. So that's gotta be interested. Curious to think what our guest thinks about that topic maybe as well. But today we have with us Boris, Boris Blanco, Mr. White. Uh, I met Boris last year during the Young Leaders of America's initiative in Portland. Boris is actually a 2021 YLI alumni, and he was part of the small select group that got to travel uh, to their partner state because they didn't get a chance to travel to the COVID that previous year yet. And he was part of that select group. So that just speaks that, out of the cream of the crop, he was at the top. Very fun, humble guy. Really made actually friends real quick. I think I met him during getting breakfast one morning. So we met over breakfast. It's like, who is this new guy? I haven't seen you around for the past few weeks. And then he arrived there. And immediately he was like, befriending everybody, networking, making sure everyone met new people, engaged. Uh, Fun fact, we had Virginia on like a few months ago.
Yeah.
It was Boris whom she met during that networking event that led us to Virginia's rooftop. So that was really cool. But with that being said, Boris, we're going to let you speak more about what you're doing, your business, your experience in business, supply chain facilitating, leadership. But Boris, welcome to Social Compost.
Well, thanks, Diego. Thanks, Gianluca. I mean, I'm honored to be here. It's a pleasure to be here. I mean, we've been talking about this with Diego for a long time since we were in Portland that we will be here in live in a podcast or something like that. So I'm really honored to be here and hoping to talk to you guys. I'm from El Salvador. I'm actually an entrepreneur from El Salvador. I didn't know if I said that. And I'm really happy to be an entrepreneur, to be a facilitator for people to become entrepreneurs. And I'm here to talk about it and let's roll.
Awesome. So let's first start off because El Salvador. There's a reason why it's called El Salvador. If you know the Spanish history behind it, but I'm really intrigued to figure out like, okay, so where do you belong to as El Salvador? Is it are you Latam? How do you connect with the other countries in the Caribbean? Is there a connection? Or are you more linked to Middle America? Or are you more linked to the Caribbean? How is that? Just for a perception of somebody who doesn't know quite as much geographically as well about your country.
Well, El Salvador is a really small country. We're located like like right in the middle, like right in the center of Central America, and we're a really small country. So we're part of we we think as Salvadorans we're part of Central America, not as much as with the Caribbean, right? The same zone, but I mean it's kind of separated because most of it because of the language. Because in El Salvador, in all Central America, from Mexico. all the way to Argentina, and the Spanish is the language, right? So it makes you feel more like Latin, like the roots with Mexico and all the traditions that we share. And it's a little bit different in the Caribbean, right? It's other traditions, other kind of people, other there were other conquerors in the Caribbean, and there were other conquerors, so the traditions are sort of different. But in El Salvador, we are really friendly people. I mean, Diego, I think he described us well. We like to befriend. We like to try other cultures, learn from other cultures, and in the past few years, El Salvador uh, has been put in the middle of a map of technology, of crypto, of a really cool president, and it has been having a lot of buzz. And everywhere I go, it's like, oh, you're from El Salvador. How's crypto there? So that, I mean, it's really fun, and it's really nice because before that, we weren't really in the map for nothing, right?
So
So it's nice.
for what was it, Napi? What
Now,
put you what put you most on the map? Like if we would talk about El Salvador, what would people talk about from El Salvador?
right now, it's crypto. It's Nayib Bukele. It's the
And
president,
before
right?
that?
Before that, I mean, just not there was there's just not more to talk about good things from El Salvador other than the maras or the gangs. We were famous for being the second most violent country in the whole world. So there was a big conflict here. So hopefully now it's kind of different, and we're being seen it from other perspective, more positive.
So I
Well,
have to ask, sorry, Diego, final questions before we go on to the more like in-depth stuff and we go into business and wildlife. Um, how big is Carnival in El Salvador?
Carnival.
Yeah.
Oh no, I think you are you are like you're talking about the carnival like in Brazil, like
Yeah, so I want to
down
know
there.
like if you also celebrate it, I want to know about Carnival and I want to know about Dia de los Muertos. I'm
De
really
la-
curious about those two active events and which one is more popular, or do you celebrate them at all?
in El Salvador, we have our own like carnival for saying, right? It's not a carnival. It's like more like um, like parades and I don't know how to say in English, but more like fiestas patronales. It's like having a big party all over the city. It's in August, and the whole countryside stops, right? And it becomes a lot of partying, a lot of going with the family to different fairs and stuff. And we celebrate that in El Salvador. It's in August, but for all the countries in Central America, there's different parts of the year that they celebrate their national holidays for saying. And then we have Dia de los Muertos, which is like a very Mexican tradition, which is really close to us, but it's not that big. It's holiday for us, and we celebrate. We go to the, but it's more like going to the cemetery to visit to you really to honor your ancestors, and it's not kind of like party, but more like a more like serious holiday, like really honoring your ancestors. That's how we live it here. Not really like the party thing like in Mexico.
yeah, and that's like in October, right? I think I attended one of those kind of parties when I was in New Zealand right before I left, and it was kind of odd being there. Like it's a weird vibe if you're not used to it, you're not from the region, to say the least. But yeah, coming back to El Salvador, you mentioned it. One of the first conversations we struck after I think one of our road trips importance is. I talked to you in the bus, like, what's crypto really like there, for example. And you mentioned,
Yeah.
that technology has kind of put El Salvador in the spotlight of the world, but what we see is like mainstream media, right? But like,
Mm-mm.
what is it actually like for an individual, like you yourself as a business owner? Uh, is it all fluff, or is it like how are you experiencing that spotlight?
For for me, it's as I said in the beginning, it's really nice to be like recognized outside of my country for something good. That's a big change. Before that, it was like really different. But talking about all the crypto and Bitcoin and all the easiness to make business here in El Salvador, I have to say that the past it was we have like a year and a half with the law of Bitcoin here, the law is that Bitcoin is a legal tender, so we can pay in Bitcoin as we can pay in dollars. Our legal currency is dollars, U.S. dollars. So we in El Salvador we use U.S.
Oh,
dollars
it's
for
so
everything.
the El Salvador doesn't has its have its own like
We had our own currency
okay.
like before 2001, and it's called colon, but
Yeah.
nobody uses it. I mean, it's just in books,
So
and you can
it's
see it
been
in your
completely
bank
Can
account.
dollarized.
you can you still pay with colon?
It's colon is eight colons for $1. What's the change in the moment that they dollarize the country? It
Ah,
stay like that.
well,
So
that's not too
we
bad.
yeah. So now everything like it was like in 2000. I think I was in at school still that I didn't understand that much, but the colon disappeared, and every time they have a dollar until now we see colones only in their bank account. Like you have X colones, which is X dollars, right? So it's just like for having in the books or something, but you don't really use it whenever you see prices, whenever you pay with US dollars. That's our currency. So aside from the US dollar, now we have crypto, we have Bitcoins, specifically Bitcoin. You can pay with Bitcoin wherever you go. And the businesses were pushed to have these apps to develop their own payment methods or payment receipt methods so we can pay with Bitcoin. And in the reality, what happened was that the government sent out a wallet, right? A crypto wallet, which was called Chivo wallet, and and we got a bonus of $20 worth of Bitcoin for every citizen. So we could use those $20 with Chivo wallet everywhere in the country. So wherever you could go, you could pay with your Bitcoins worth $20, and then you can continue to do that. But what happened was that most people download the app, they got their $20 with their national document, and then they never used it again, right? So they just spent the $20 worth of Bitcoin and then just threw away the
Yeah,
app.
the
Yeah,
reality is usually the adoption curve. People just see it as free money. I would assume, and
yeah,
then like yeah, introducing new technologies, it's that definitely challenging. But having that in the spotlight, like, has that created any like other opportunities for entrepreneurs, for example, like have new businesses developed from what you've seen on the ground, or
of course.
how have you approached your business differently?
There has been a boom in fintech here in El Salvador. A lot of enterprises going into fintech, having payment methods, different innovation in that case. But just to close the crypto thing, the real thing that's happening here that no one's using. I mean, it's a very few part of the population that actually use it. I mean, you can go to McDonald's and you can pay with Bitcoin, but I mean, the line is always empty. I mean, no one really
But
pays
doesn't
with
that
that.
give an advantage? Like, hey, the line is empty, so it's actually easier.
Yeah,
So
but no,
so
no, no. Sorry.
are people buying stuff with Bitcoin?
Yeah, but not really because right now, like with the crash of Bitcoin,
Yeah.
everyone was like coming out of Bitcoin because it's specifically Bitcoin which is our legal tender, right? We cannot pay with other like Ethereum or
Yeah.
other currency. You can pay with Bitcoin, so it's kind of difficult.
You can't go to the coffee shop and pay with Doge.
No,
You
you
can't
can't.
buy a cup of coffee and pay
You
with Doge. Okay.
you can
It's
pay
only
with Bitcoin,
Bitcoin.
but not with Doge. Yeah, it's only
Okay,
Bitcoin.
okay.
Some other entrepreneurs they accept other cryptocurrencies, but the catch is that if it's a legal tender, you can declare the goods, right? You are up to pay like taxes and everything. So
Mhm.
that's why Bitcoin is a legal tender. So you cannot pay with Doge because that's another
Yeah,
tender
it
with different stuff.
complicates the accounting.
Yeah, yeah, the accounting and all that legal stuff. So bottom line is that not everyone, like it's the vast minority that is using, like really using Bitcoin. But I mean, it's an option, so it's always good. We welcome a lot of tourists because of that, because tourists do use them. A lot of crypto nerds come to El Salvador just to try it, and it's nice for businesses.
So the tourists do use it.
Yeah, the tourists, most tourists come to do that. Yeah, like to
Oh,
try it,
that's
and
interesting.
it's useful.
And that's actually now quite good because of the market. It's actually quite good to get crypto payments on kind of the cheap, as we like to call it. But how does that for you, like in your plans for 2023? Is that something you can incorporate now that it's kind of a legal tender? Is it something that you can incorporate in your business model? Say like, hey, I'm gonna make a business model from having Bitcoin as a legal payment, so I'm going to invest in it and then cash it out when I can maximize my returns. Is that something that's being considered at the moment?
I am a very conservative guy, and I think that I will not get into something that I don't fully understand, because I mean there's a lot of risk involved in there. You just have to see Sam Bankman-Fried, like what he's into right now. So if I don't quite get it, I rather not do it. But there's a lot of small businesses that started last year that were like into what when you created when you did
Mining.
crypto mining. Yeah, a lot of small entrepreneurship that came up with crypto mining, and then they offered plans so you could mine, you could like be a part of mining, all kind of things. So that
Yeah,
was last year. That was last year because there was a boom. There was a
yeah.
lot of
Oh
That's
enthusiasm. Right
God.
now,
if you stop.
it's
Oh God. Yeah, no, we're laughing because it's very similar in a lot of countries that these third party services come around, and a lot of them in the name or in the name of crypto and in the name of Bitcoin, but they're just um, reorganized MLM schemes, and we always laugh as soon as we hear packages. We're like, you know
yeah,
what? You either mind yourself or you don't mind. And by minding yourself, we don't mean buying a package of somebody that supposedly mines and you have never seen a mining rig in your life.
that-
So I think
yeah.
it's definitely, and I do feel, and that's why it's interesting to ask. Like you mentioned with the tourist, it is kind of like a source of income for tourists coming in and saying like, hey, I can pay with Bitcoin. The downside is as well, you get a lot of scammers who are like, hey, there's some easy money to be made there. Let's go
Hmm.
try it out. So I can imagine that does have an impact. And I fully understand your conservative approach because we are very much still in the early phases of this technology. And yeah, most of us don't understand like more than 5% of it.
Yeah,
Right.
you're right.
So in the context of tech, you already mentioned fintech has been like the developing. That's kind of a spin-off effect of what happened with Bitcoin, but also like other technologies. Like we closed last year off with AI, artificial intelligence, um, metaverse, the evolution of social media as well. Like if you look at it from a like business perspective, have there been any other opportunities? Because remind me again, you are in the were in the fruit business, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
in the food
like
business. Yeah.
how has like the limelight of technology kind of affected entrepreneurs, and how are you yourself kind of uh, embracing or like rejecting that technology?
Well, in my case, well, I own uh, I own Fruto Infinito, which is a company that connects farmers to local businesses, maybe hotels, restaurants, your house. So what we try to do is to pay fair prices to our producers, or we have our own production of some things, and then we distribute it among in the city, right? So with this technology coming in, well, I did it in my webpage. You can pay with Bitcoin. You can like incorporate some of these technologies, but it hasn't really affected me or benefited me or any either or, right? It has been more of the same of the business, right? Doing the things you do well, trying to replicate them, and trying to do your best day by day, and having good earnings as well as for the farmers, as well as for ourselves in Fruto. So with these kind of technologies, there's no hasn't had an impact, like really impact what we do. I think what we have learned is that you can incorporate technology into farming also, like having all this traceability all the way from the farmer to where it's going to be used. But right now, the reality is that in El Salvador, no one really pays for that value added, right? Because if you are going to trace back using technology, maybe using these technologies of what is the technology behind crypto? I'm like remembering.
Blockchain.
Blockchain.
Yeah, so if you're going to use that for tracing back, although it's possible, right, to trace back what the seed, where you planted, what was the weather, all this data you collect, and you can sell that. But I mean that carries a cost, right? And right here in El Salvador, the reality is that we are not a developed country which pays for value. It's more like they pay for like more the cheap things, right? Or
That's a step too far, basically. Yeah.
What would you
yeah.
say is like
Yeah.
the biggest industry, like if we're talking about income on a country level, the biggest industry in El Salvador?
In El Salvador, there's a lot of right now. There's a construction boom, like construct because there's a lot of buildings, new buildings, a lot of people working into construction. But traditionally, we have been able to our economy depends a lot in sugar cane, exporting sugar and producing all this cane. But in the case of El Salvador, mainly of El Salvador, I don't know other Central American countries, but the main source of income is our Salvadorans outside the country. So all
Oh,
the things that all the
remittance.
money remittances, yeah, it's called remesas in here. So that's like half of what the country does here, right? Because there's a lot of people. We are in El Salvador. We are about 7 million people, like 6, 7 million people,
Yeah,
and there's
that's
another.
10 times us basically.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
and that's just here. Now, outside El Salvador, in Australia, New Zealand, mostly in the U.S., in the West Coast, and also in Washington, there's other 7 million Salvador. So all these people living abroad, they send a lot of remittances, and that's the main source of income for the
How
government.
about rum? Do you have a good rum? Because you're talking sugarcane, so you must have a good rum, at least one good
We
rum.
we have our own rum. It's called Siwatan. Yeah, and it's sold like a really like this nostalgic product, like people get it to go to sell it in other countries. I missed getting rum to Diego in Portland. I should have
Oh,
gotten a bottle of rum, but I mean I couldn't. But yeah, we have a good rum. It's pretty good. Yeah.
yeah. So from a fruit perspective, like you mentioned, like the technology, the blockchain technology could work, but there's no real incentive to do it. There's no monetary value to do it at the moment, of course.
At the moment, yeah.
Um, I was immediately thinking like, hey, fruit NFTs, but again, there has to be like a use case for it. So I feel like we're still very far away from use cases. But between when they decided to make it a legal entity or use Bitcoin as a legal asset until now, has there been a pitch towards a certain product or a company that has succeeded, that has been successful, where you're like, oh wow, this is actually a pretty good use case for Bitcoin?
Well, actually, I cannot think of one really. I cannot think of specifically of Bitcoin, right? I cannot or crypto. I cannot think of one really successful organization like Salvadoran or entrepreneurship that has been able to cope with all the requirements to do an app or to do everything like really nice. Most of the businesses that run here, the Bitcoin and the crypto things are like other from other countries. mainly the US, right? So we have all these apps that are famous right now here, like Stripe, for example. That it's something big here,
So it's more like
and
expats or like people from outside coming to work there or setting up stuff there or headquartering
yeah,
in El Salvador.
the brands. I mean, the people that already did this all over the world, or maybe other developed countries, they come
Yeah,
here and they establish their operation, but
bigger
not like born.
franchises.
Yeah, bigger franchises, but not like someone something born here and like developed
So
here. Right? Other
So how would you describe the state of like entrepreneurship in El Salvador? Like, is there a lot of small businesses like family owned businesses?
we
Because
have,
there's a nuance difference. Right? You have business owners and you have like entrepreneurship. So
yeah.
how would you describe that scene in El
In
Salvador?
in El Salvador, we tend to be in we tend to like a lot of what is outside the country. We prefer what is imported than what is national. You know, it has been a something. I don't know if it's the same back in your country, but in here, it's really
It's the
evident.
same. It's the same.
Yeah.
Usually
So
in developing countries, it's the same.
yeah, but I mean, in here you cannot see it. You have a good burger like right besides McDonald's, which has a lot of fresher products and everything, but people go to McDonald's, right? So because we have this issue with that, but in the past few years, I have seen a more nationalistic approach to businesses. So I have seen a lot of small businesses rise. I'm in the food sector, so I see a lot of small businesses going into small restaurants. Not franchises like before that everyone wanted to put like a franchise, but right now like growing, innovating from their own, and in the entrepreneurship panorama here in El Salvador, I think it has had a lot of support from the government. That is something good because it has provided with training to people that want to be entrepreneurs, to want to be business owners, to want to open their own business, and also focus in what the government is pushing. Like, for example, tourism. For example, there's a lot of tourism companies growing in here because there's a lot of tourists right now. And also what I said about fintech, about payment options, not really into the crypto or Bitcoin thing, but just payment options like pay with your phone and apps that are developed here that contribute to that. So I think it's in general in the country there's a positive approach for entrepreneurs. People, I differently from what I saw like maybe 10 years ago, that it was the situation was like literally bad because we had a lot of, of robbery, a lot of gangs. You get, I don't know how you call it, but you can get like blackmail, maybe is the word. Like you could get rents, and like you need to pay to the gangs to continue your operation, right? So that happened like 10, maybe 5 years ago, but right now that's like over. The government did a really nice job in cleaning up the all the bad guys, and now that same air of peace that we breathe, it motivates a lot of business owners to open up their businesses because right now there's no risk of a gang coming to your house and asking you for money or your life, right? So that has given a lot of good influence for people to promote their having a business. So I think it's positive, right?
So you've also like I'm not sure, but aside from the traveling to the US to Portland, have you experienced like how business is anywhere else? Just for a frame of reference.
Actually, I was my first experience with how business was with Twilight, and it was virtual, right? Because as you said, I was part of the pandemic,
Yeah,
uh, of the pandemic Twilight, so it was all virtual. But it was nice because it opened up a lot of possibilities to know what was happening, not only in the U.S. but also in other countries. And having been part of Twilight, I got part of also virtually of another fellowship in Spain. So
in
I
Spain.
got the chance, yeah. So I got the chance to talk to entrepreneurs in Spain to know how is business there. So as developed countries, they work really different than underdeveloped.
Yeah,
Developed. in
What,
developed countries.
what would you say is like the biggest shock or like a moment of wow, is it really that easy or that difficult to for example, when you went to Portland and met with your host, like the different environment, like what shocked you the most or like surprised you the most?
For me, is that is really easier to make business in countries like ours. Like, I mean, it's really because of the laws are not so enforced like in the US, for example, or in Spain. Then I mean,
You
it's
mean it's
easier.
easier to start a business in El Salvador compared to Spain or the
It's
US?
I think
The
it's
regulations
easier.
are less harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's less harsh. I mean, you need less money to start. I mean, you need less resources to start. So in that case, it's easier because with a little money you can start. In Europe or in the US, if you want to start a business, you need to have funding. You need to have a lot of money to comply with all the regulations and with all the things you have to pay. And as everything is like more expensive, you need to have a backup. Like, I mean, you need to have really a good idea, or either a lot of money, or either funding, so you can make it real. In according to my experience, in our countries, it's easier than that. You can start with a fewer, and if you are successful, then you can grow it into a lot. You can bootstrap a lot. You can use your own money to do it and try to do that. But in Europe and the
Do
US,
we
if you
do
start
we
like that,
do we undervalue it? Do we take it for granted that it's easier, for instance, in El Salvador to start a
I
business? Do we take it for
I,
granted?
I think my experience is that I started a business. I was driven into this because I lost my secure job, right, in one time of in my life, and I thought it was unfair how I lost my job. I thought it was, man, I work a lot for this company, and now I'm jobless, right? I'm seeking for job. So I didn't want to live that experience again. So I decided to make my own path, right? To like, if someday I'm going to be an businessman, this is my time. I said in that, like, 5 6 years ago. So I started my business like that, and I didn't know how it was. I had no experience. My parents are not business owners. They are like salary people, right? Like regular people that work for a salary, like most of us. And it was really hard for me. But when I opened my eyes, like Diego said, like talking to other countries, talking to other cultures, I think um, it would be easier for people to run a business here in El Salvador, because I mean they just give it for granted because they have a lot of possibilities to do it, and if you have a good idea, you can make it work. It is difficult to make it grow and to sustain it in time. That is the difficult part, but not the beginning. But to make it like a former business and to sustain it and to make it grow, that is that is difficult in our countries, and it's easier in the US and in Europe, but it is because they have all this structure from the beginning. And as we begin like really small, it is difficult to grow, but they begin companies like really strong. So I think that's the main difference. It's easy to start, but it's difficult to sustain and grow in our country.
If you were starting over and you had the opportunities to start for something in Spain or the US, would you still start how you started, or would you opt in for the other option where it's more difficult but with more potential for growth?
I think if I had that, if I had, I mean, it's not up only to you, because you have to have the resources. Also, you need to have the possibilities. You need to have access to credit, which is difficult in other countries. And if I had all the same path I had here, I will definitely do it. I will definitely go for opening a business and having all the risk it takes. But it's really gratificating, not only because of what you do, but also you generate jobs. I mean, you generate jobs for people that maybe they are not capable of having their own job or their own company, because they can't. So being a business owner, a business leader, it's also a responsibility, because we create jobs, we create opportunities for people that are unable to do it. So I mean, it's really grateful for me to be part of this.
I do want to jump into that because in the beginning, when I started out being an entrepreneur, it was about jobs as well. And then the question at a certain point came up, what's the end goal in that sense for creating jobs? Like, is there a certain number that you're satisfied with? Is there a certain system that you're satisfied with? Or is it something knowing that you help start a career of somebody else who even grows bigger than you grow? So where like when we take the perspective as an entrepreneur to say like, because I'm gonna go full context. Diego and I differ in that sense, and is saying that Diego is a solopreneur where he says like, listen, I have a particular skills, and I do work together with others, but basically, I run a one man company, for instance. I
Mhm.
do collaborate on projects, but I invest in myself. Whereas I run a company currently with I think 14 FTE, um, focusing on now in the stage where we have to decide as a company, are we gonna go for specialized products and services, or are we going to scale to 50 to larger and become like a big firm? And that's why I'm basically asking you this question.
Yeah, listen, for me, since the beginning, well, I'm going to tell you a little bit of my story of how I got here, like where I'm at in this point. And as I said, I lost my job in one phase of my career, and then I started a business, but I started with someone else. I partnered with someone else, and we began. He was really good at sales, and I was really good at administrator and with purchasing. So we had a great team. But this ended just the pandemic began, and we took our separate ways because we had different opinions, we had different choices, and then I became a solopreneur. Right, I started myself doing my thing, and the thing is that I started with a vision to provide to my family. Right, that was my vision. I had a family. I'm a family guy. I love my family. I love my wife. I have 4 kids. My last kid was born like a week ago, so she's just like 7 8 days old. So
Congrats.
I thanks. So that's like my motivation. That's like what I do for a living. So with that vision in mind, I started my business, and as I was growing, I could hire someone else and then someone else more, and I saw that these people that work in the organization, they also have their families, right? They also have their values. They provide for their kids. They have kids at school. They have responsibilities, and I fell in love with the fact that helping others, it's really nice. Like I don't know the word in English, but it's really like you feel grateful for that, and it gives a lot of joy. It's a lot of joy in sharing, in making them part of something. And I began myself, and now we are 8 people the in 2 years that we've been doing this. Like I started, so when I saw this past December, we made a party, right? Like a Christmas party with all the people that work with me. And I said, wow, last year we were only three, now we're eight. And it's amazing the feeling that these people are working for a purpose. They are providing to their families. And I mean, it makes me feel like really nice, and it makes me want more. And I think that's the path I'm going to take. I'm going to try to generate more opportunities, create more sales, to have more people coming in and work, and having a great team. I mean, I just love the fact that I can contribute to the society in this way. It seems like a little bit of a dreamer, but I think
No, it's very inspiring. I have to say, I almost wanna scale now.
yeah, it's nice.
Yeah.
It's difficult because I mean, I had experiences that people are not grateful. I mean, they backstab you, right? I had employees that they steal some money of the customers, for example, because they pay you in the time. If you have good controls, I had bad experiences, but that's just exceptions. I mean, the rule. I mean, most of the people I have worked with are really good people, really compromised people, and it is worth. uh, working for them and making a big company for more people to come in. So it has the good and the bads, but the good is more, and it's working for the
So you're gonna scale now, Jean-Luc.
I'm not sure, but it's still, and the reason why I'm saying I'm not sure because it's not up to me anymore.
No,
Because I think
I
that's
agree.
the biggest change that I made was to say like, first of all, there are multiple partners, so there are multiple shareholders that decide, and secondly, I'm in a little bit of a different situation in the sense that I'm not the first generation entrepreneur. So I have commitments to family businesses as well, which I have avoided for at least 10 years, but I'm
good.
now coming to a certain age where I can no longer dismiss it.
You need
And
to face it.
my dad is also getting to an age where he just needs to retire, even though he still pretty much loves what he's doing. That I feel responsible as an only child that I'm in some way involved. And for me, that shifts the focus a little bit and puts a little bit too much pressure on the rest of the management team of our company. So it wouldn't be fair for me to say like, I want to scale, but you guys have to do it. So from that perspective, it works differently. And scaling now is more towards synergy between businesses than making one big business because and that's an accomplishment by that's not something that I did, but all these businesses had a pretty good year last year. So in that sense, it's like now I have to focus. I have to change my focus from a CEO to a board member, basically, like understanding how to look at a business from a completely different perspective than from the operational side, and at the same time understand that some of the companies are still in a very early stage and haven't fully matured. So you need to be in the operational side as well. So it's a very kind of interesting balance. But Diego, to be honest, Boris did inspire me. Like from the perspective, and no, this is a good thing. Like to give people more perspective, and then we'll get back to Boris. Is today we had our annual office cleanup. So the second work day of the year, or the second possible day of the year, we have our office cleanup. And basically that in the beginning, like Boris, just like you said with the Christmas party, in the beginning it's just you, like, and maybe two others, like, okay, we're gonna do the office cleanup, and then I take all this cleaning stuff and I start cleaning the office. And then in year two, you're cleaning with the three of us. Okay, we're cleaning three of us. And then in year three, hey, we're cleaning with five people. And today we were cleaning with eight. So the office was clean within 2 hours. We rearranged the whole office to make more space because it's an office for at max eight people, but we're with 14. So we had to configure all the chairs and the table in a way that at busiest, like on the Monday and Friday, when it's basically office days, we due to COVID we didn't have office days, but now we're kind of bringing back office days. There have to be space. There has to be space for 14 people, and I also think the most that today we had the most luxurious lunch we've ever had on cleaning day. But that's also because this was one of the most fun cleaning days because we were really there as a team and everybody was pitching in and helping out, and it was really fun. And then I do get the feeling that Boris is describing like, hey, this is so cool. Like people are part of it. They feel part of it because they could have also said like, oh, it isn't mandatory. Oh yeah, Jean-Luc is fine. You clean the office. We don't care. And they actually showed up, and some of them were at the office before me. So that always really gives like, and it's also sometimes people that you're like worried that like, oh, they weren't really satisfied how the year went last year. No, they're there saying like, hey, I feel for this company. I want to help, and that's the feeling that Boris's thought gave me, and I was like, yeah, I can definitely relate to that feeling.
And this is what I
Great.
meant when I met Boris. Boris has some sort of like magic to talk with people, and this is basically what he did throughout the whole
I,
experience since I
I
met
am
him.
passionate. I am passionate with what I do. I really mean it.
So how much of that was born? How much was it raised? Like how did it came about?
I am going to get into a topic which I don't know if you're comfortable with, but I believe in God a lot. I'm a Catholic. I believe in God. I believe in the Holy Spirit. And I believe that since I have been, I don't know, people call it meditation, people call it a lot of ways, but in a way for me, it's praying, having your alone time with God, with your plans, with what you do. And I've been having my alone time for about 3 years now, and I write a diary and write not every day, right? Because it's kind of difficult, but I write main ideas or things that I talk to God, and I ask Him for wisdom and intelligence and everything that comes from Him. And it has been quite a difference of living the day by day really passionate. I mean, I can only make the most of this moment, right? It's just I just have an hour with you guys, and not just an hour, just this minute. I have this minute to speak to you. So if I'm gonna be here, I'm gonna make the best out of it. And if I'm gonna be here, I'm gonna be passionate about it. And that's what I try to transmit. That's because God inspires me to be like living the day. And when I was in Portland, I was living in Portland. And I was like basically networking and having friends and making the most of it because it is a moment that will never ever come back. I mean, we can have another social confoes in like in a year or maybe a month. I don't know, but it's not gonna be the same. It's gonna be a different context. So if you're living today, you better make the most out of today. So that's I think where it comes from, right? This desire to make the most out.
Yeah, having seen that up close and personal, I can attest to that. Like literally, how he is here on screen, it's even like more contagious in person. Uh, but 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 on that note, you mentioned when you started off, you started as solopreneur, then you started growing team of 8 now in the past 2 to 3 years. Like yes, you have like this passion and innate ability to inspire. I'd say people, but with that comes also with running a business comes also leadership skills. Like how has, I guess, from starting your business solo, that leadership evolved in growing it into a team? And how has the experience from something like Wiley uh, affected the way you kind of approach leadership?
I think the most interesting part and the most enriching part of being part of Wildlife and this experience in Portland and another experiences is that you get to meet new people and new perspectives of seeing life. As what happened here with young Luke and me, he's living through something that I try to inspire with why I say, right? But leadership is that learning from other people and taking the best out of different people, what it gets to you, and applying that when you come back to your normal life, because you have a normal life every day, but there are a few things, a few moments in life that you can get back to develop your leadership with other people. That was, I think, the most enriching part of Wildlife, because I met so many characters, so many people that I learned from doing. What have you done in this situation? And maybe they did something else, and I try to learn from that and apply that when I come back here. And leadership, I think, it's something that most people can learn to. But leadership is about commitment. If you want to be a leader, you have to be committed, like really committed. And that's what people miss. They want to be leaders without being committed, and that's not possible. You need to be committed. And I remember in back in Portland, talking about wildlife, uh, I was really committed to the group. And Diego, you can say that, right? I was like, I was
Yeah,
really
yeah.
caring for the
Basically,
group.
the group nominated him mayor of Portland for the group.
But yeah, but I was really committed to the group. I was really committed to the thing.
It's
So
100%. You formulated it perfectly. It's a very big problem in the upcoming professional generation of not taking ownership, but do wanting the benefits from other people that take ownership and are committed. So I think it's beautifully worded, and I don't have anything to. I completely agree on it.
yeah, and you have been right that the problem with the next generation is that they don't commit to nothing. They just want to be part of, but not committed, and that's a big difference. And I was talking this morning about the difference of our commitment and being involved, and it was the example of a breakfast. And when you eat breakfast here in El Salvador, there's eggs, there's cheese, there's bacon, right? There's like something that you normally eat.
You're
Well,
bringing back flashbacks.
yeah, yeah.
Hotel
So
flashbacks.
that's so talking about commitment and involvement. The hand or the hand gave the egg, right? She was involved. Then the cow, they gave the cheese and the milk and cheese. So that was involved. But the only one committed was the pork. The poor pig needs to die to be there in your plate. So he was committed, and that's the difference. You need to be able to you need to be willing to die for something. I mean, talking like figuratively speaking, right?
That,
But you need to be like the
that's
pork. You need
one
to be
hell of
like
an
the pork to be
analogy.
a leader. The hen
Wow.
continued alive, the cow continued, but the pork, he gave everything, and he died to be there in your plate. So you need to be committed. You need to be like a leader and to take the good with the bad, because being a leader, it's not only about good things. Maybe good things is what you see in social media, but there's a lot of failure behind it. There's a lot of being alone or things. So, and that's what family. It's important also to be back there. So that's how I feel about commitment and these experiences, and it has opened me, Diego, to other experiences. I don't know. Alonso from Brazil will invite you soon, I think, but he invited me to a session in Brazil, and I will be able to go to Brazil to experience the entrepreneurship panorama in Brazil. So that's really nice, and that happens only because I met with him and I get a good relationship, and we develop a nice friendship. And now I'm going to be able to go and to live how they live in Brazil for a few days. So I think that's part of what what's good, being like really open to possibilities.
I do have a final question about this, because I'm really interested how you deal with it. For me personally, I love traveling. Um, One of the biggest reasons why I never applied for YLI was family, where you kind of found a way to make it work with three kids at that time to do the YLI project. I couldn't make it work. Um, but also, when I travel, it takes a lot of time and commitment to get back into rhythm.
It
So,
does.
because you already say, like, you're somebody that if you're there, you're going to be present. So if you're Portland, you're going to be present in Portland. You're going to give it you all. You're going to take every experience. And then everything multiplies and comes at you, and you get all these opportunities. And you go back with maybe 20 opportunities. And then you go back to your regular life. How do you transition back? Do you have tips for people similar to you who are entrepreneurs who then come back through their day to day and struggle getting back into rhythm?
My first kind of I don't know if it's advice or what I did is that you have to make sure that you run a, a company or an organization that it is not depending on yourself. It is different to generate yourself a job than to be a leader in an organization and to be an entrepreneur. So the first thing is that you need to be sure that your organization or your entrepreneurship will continue to run even if you're not there. That is like that gives you peace of mind, so you can really live your experience out in your vacations or in your whatever thing you're going to do outside your country or anything. So you need to make sure that you have an organization as solid that can run without you being in charge for a week or 2 weeks. In my case, it was 3, 4 weeks. But that sense of having someone having taken care of what you usually do and coming back to something that will be still operating when you come back, it gives you a sense of peace. And with that being said, when one comes back, I mean, this is so funny because I lived it, and it took me like maybe 3 to 4 weeks to fully come back and land here in El Salvador because I was so into a lot of ideas and a lot of things that happened there and a lot of possibilities. But in the end, you take like the maybe two or three of the all the 20 ideas you took, you commit to one, two, or three, maybe the most, and then you continue your normal life. But it gives you a sense of peace knowing that you can come back to a team, you can come back to an organization that continues to run without you, and that you can still like get the hold of it again. And to come back is like to narrow down your thoughts and be like honest with you. Of the 20 ideas I got, really how many of those things I'm going to do, maybe one or two, and be happy with your choice. Be happy with it because you have to be happy with whatever you choose that time. So I think it's like choosing whatever you're going to stick to, and maybe renounce. I always say quit on all the other ideas that may be really nice, but they're just not for you. You're not there. So living happy with that decision.
Yeah, feeling much better now.
No, I agree. It took me like a few weeks to get back into rhythm as well. When I got back, I think we chatted a bit. And like, Boris,
Yes,
I'm still knocked out. I still can't get into a groove.
of
So
course.
It's
I
one of
had
the
a similar
hardest things,
experience.
and I think I underestimated it. I'm gonna give you an example because
Uh,
that's one of
and
the main reasons why 2022 I can't give it a high grade because I traveled so much in the first 6 months of 2022 that it felt that I never got into a rhythm because we left to San Diego and then I actually skipped one of my trips or two of my trips and then another one. So it was like in 3, 4 months time, I traveled 3 times. So basically, you never get back into rhythm because as soon as you get back into rhythm, you have your
You need to
next
live
level.
again.
You need to leave again, and it's like it was the first time that I was completely like disoriented, like you were just describing. Like, yeah, I cannot. The best part about the structure that I've put up for myself is I have to bring the kids to school, so there's at least some consistency there where you're just like, okay, I can't sleep out because I have to bring the kids to school. And wow, I'm up already, so let's go to work. So it's a really very, very much flowing process. But actually getting back into the rhythm took quite some time. I have to
Yeah.
admit that's difficult. Diego, do you feel we have time for an over under or not?
yeah, I think we can do one each, and then I have one final question to close it off. You wanna start it off?
Oh yeah, sure. Let's so Boris, what we usually do is give an over under, overrated, underrated. You get to decide whether it's underrated or overrated, and if you want to elaborate, feel free to add why you chose that. So the
Great,
first
great.
one, yeah, the first one I'm gonna go really deep immediately is uh, a supply chain strategy, overrated or underrated?
Well, let me get through. Underrated would be that is it's
Underrated
like
means people should invest more time into supply chain
It's
strategy.
underappreciated.
It's
It's
under.
underappreciated, and
Okay, great,
overrated is a supply chain strategies
exaggerated.
are
Yeah,
is
yeah.
exaggerated or it's overhyped.
great. So I think for supply chain, it depends on the business you're in because some businesses depend a lot on supply chain, but I think it's underrated because if you really get to manage supply chain, you have a lot of business advantages. But it depends on the business.
Okay. A less serious one for me. Volcanoes. Overrated or underrated?
Volcanoes are underrated. They are awesome. I mean, you need to visit. In El Salvador, we have like 20 volcanoes in a piece of land like this. So these are underrated. Yeah.
So
Okay.
how many are active of those 20?
I mean, like maybe two.
Uh,
Yeah.
hmm. Okay.
Oh,
Okay, got it.
we have a fewer underrated, overrated. This one is for you as well, Diego. Is money
Oh man,
overrated or underrated?
money is way overrated. Money should be a tool, not a goal. Money is a tool to get whatever you want, but it's not the end goal. So I think it's deeply overrated.
If I look at you mentioned SBF, if I look at the SBF case, money is heavily overrated indeed. Uh, yeah, but
It
it's
is.
also underrated. I have to say it's underrated, as too many people in the world still don't understand how it works.
Yeah. In that
Right.
sense, it is. Yeah.
Right. So I put it in the box of financial literacy. It's heavily underrated.
Yeah,
But I agree with Boris in the context of a tool. Yeah, it's
yeah.
how you use it. Okay, final question to close it off, Boris. How are you kicking off 2023?
I am kicking off 2023 the best way with this podcast, which is amazing. But in the end, with everything coming in, I have a lot of good perspectives of growth this year. And I think I'm feeling really hopeful. I don't know, since the birth of my child, my last child, her name is Olivia, I've been feeling a lot of peace. And I think I'm kicking off 2023 to be like the best year of my life, talking about entrepreneurship. I feel it, I can just like taste it, and I feel like really confident on achieving it. I don't know if I will, but I'm kicking off like really motivated to do it and confident that I can really achieve it. So
Love
that's
it.
how I'm kicking off.
Embracing the commitment to entrepreneurship in your own words.
Of
Awesome,
course,
man.
let's do it.
With that being said, Boris, we appreciate you coming on to Social Confoes and sharing your journey. Like one of our viewers was very inspiring as well as Jean-Luc. So we hope to maybe see you again soon. I hope to visit those volcanoes in El Salvador pretty soon.
Please come. And the beaches are good also.
Oh, the
Ah,
beaches are good. So that's what you haven't pitched yet. We're going to close off on the beaches. A beach where that's I mean, Diego, imagine the selling point. A beach where you can pay with Bitcoin. I mean, if that isn't a good sell, then I don't know what is. So for everybody tuning in, we want to thank you as well. Boris, thank you for tuning in. As always, the episodes will be available on Spotify and all streaming platforms within a couple of weeks. And of course, we'll be back next week with a brand new Social Confos. Thank you for tuning in. And
Thank
Diego
you
will
guys for
say,
having me.
okay, thank you again, Boris, for joining. And Diego has now promised that he will visit a volcano. Thank you for watching. This was Social Confos.
I visited the volcano before. Yeah.